Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates. With your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Do you want to talk about where he is now?
Yeah, sure. It's what we share in common.
Yeah. hmm I mean, I talk about Robbie like he's still here. He's very much alive to me in heaven. So,
Yeah, it was just about a year and a half ago, August 21st, 2023. And Ben was living on his own with a little bit of support. We'd take him shopping for groceries. So he was living about less than a mile from us in
oh,
a
really? So
condo.
what, in a condo? Okay. Was it
Yeah.
just a regular condo, or was it some kind of facility for people with special needs or something?
Regular condo, right in our neighborhood. We just very historic, and it's got just different condo associations or very historic houses or very modern houses. Just really
So
cool.
he was capable of self-care and
Yeah.
making meals for himself and all that.
He
Okay.
did not eat a whole lot of different things, but he had a limited. Let's see, Uncle Ben's basmati rice. Banquet chicken nuggets, like he had plums. He liked plums. He liked just very certain things, goldfish, Triscuits. So not the healthiest diet, but he was a
Right.
pretty healthy kid. Minute Maid kids was his favorite. He drank that, and he loved Coke and fries.
Okay.
So he was, yeah, did his own laundry, and didn't drive, but did qualify for he could take transportation, just regular, or for those assisted living center gigs, he would take the Lyft bus from Knoxville area transit. So he was really, he'd done 4 years of college. He did a bunch of volunteer jobs that honestly I got him. It was at the end of COVID, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be so isolating. So he cleaned tables, took down chairs in restaurants, just all over, worked at Goldman Bagels, helping make bagels and everything,
Mhm.
with a wonderful family. And then he got that actual paid job and had a few other gigs around town. And we were looking at him working at a restaurant downtown to be a little bit more with kids, his young adults his age, maybe even just, a few times a week. And then even looking at a doorman position, because he's so good at conversing like little hits. So he'd remember everything about everyone. So he could,
Yeah.
that was on the horizon, we thought. And anyhow, he was so independent that he would walk downtown to meet Matt, at this restaurant, Sunspot, every Monday. And then every Thursday, he'd go to Barley's for pizza. So they had their little cool dad and Ben days. And he would walk the 3 miles in the sunshine. If it was raining, obviously he'd ask for a ride or whatever, but he loved being independent like that. And he would walk on the sidewalk. It's a busy road. It's a 4-lane, but it has a sidewalk, and people walk, park and walk to the University of Tennessee football or baseball or basketball games along that road. And he had done that for, quite a while. He was just so good at it. And it was after his virtual piano lesson, he got into the more virtual lessons over COVID, and they worked really well for him. And of course, he was building his repertoire for Christmas music and everything, even in August for his gigs. And so he was walking, at 4 p.m. Someone who had just 2 hours before been revived with Narcan and then refused treatment at a hospital. That person was driven to his car and got in the car and passed out, crossed 2 lanes of traffic, and hit Ben from behind, probably going about, I would say, around 50 miles an hour, and hit him from behind and killed him instantly. Uh, and our whole world just completely changed. Well, that's an understatement. It was so shocking. And honestly, I know this will sound bizarre, but one of the most shocking things besides the actual crash is that it had nothing to do with his autism.
Right. Right. I know you worry so much about their future and, how's the autism going to affect their future? Who's going to take care of him when I'm not here and
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and this could have happened to anyone.
Yep.
And you see people walking, cycling, because there you can use a bicycle on a sidewalk if there's no bike lane and there's no bike lane on that. And there are people strolling babies right on that sidewalk. And so the fact that that could have happened to anyone, but you're so used to, oh, there's a lot about autism that is about your kid with autism, that
Yeah.
it was almost amidst all the shock. I thought, wait, so he didn't do anything autistic that
Right.
was no, he was following the rules, walking on the sidewalk, and that just he was just at that moment in time, and people gathered to help it. He was killed instantly, and you know I'm not sure what the series of events were where somebody finds someone, calls in 911, and they're found because they're non-responsive in a car, and then they're revived twice with Narcan, taken to a hospital, refused treatment, and nobody calls to say, hey, don't let this guy drive.
Right.
Because Narcan, the opioid receptors go like this. Well, it's like Cinderella, bibbity bobbity boo, at midnight, it's going to wear off. And if you still got those narcotics in your system, it's going to come right back. So that's just what happened. And we, it's been,
How did you find out? Did the police call you or?
nope. My husband actually had texted me. He saw Ben's keys, going along Kingston Pike. So he knew that he said, this always makes me so happy, because he knew that Ben was going to come meet him, and he was independent. And, he'd been doing this for a long time. So whatever it was, and I had just taken this, I had texted with Ben before his piano lesson. I still have those texts talking about like what he should practice beforehand. And I think the last thing I said was, yeah, practice Rocky Top. And he said, I'm mature enough to play the Tennessee Waltz. And I said, yes, you are. Don't forget to play Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire and Rocky Top. And then I think I took a long nap. And then Matt texted me and said, this always makes me so happy, with a screenshot of Ben's keys. And then we have a very active neighborhood Facebook page, and somebody said, it just caught my eye, what's going on Kingston Pike? And somebody said pedestrian, accident, serious with pedestrian. And so of course I looked to see where he was now. I'm like, oh gosh, well, hopefully he's at Sunspot by that time. And the keys weren't, the phone wasn't moving, the keys weren't moving. And I just thought something's really wrong. And so I tried to get there. It was just closed off. So I went the other way. I parked at our high school and I started running. I called 911. I said, hi, I'm just making sure that my son with autism is okay. I just don't know. And they were like, do you want to file a missing persons report? And
Yeah.
it was I have not been on that path since then. I was just running, and I ran up the hill, and I went to a police officer and I said, I, I can't get in touch with our son. And it was just terrible. So I actually figured it out myself, and Ben didn't have a license, so he didn't have ID on him. And they actually didn't ID him for like 3 days or something. But we knew it was him. And finally we said, here's his passport. You don't know if what the crash did, but he was hit from behind. And we viewed the body, and it was beautiful. It's beautiful. He just so gorgeous, inside and out. And yeah, it was just Matt that was just running over from the pool because it was sort of a mile from each side that we were both coming to. And, I just, well, I don't have to explain it to you. It's just, uh, I, I just feel he's definitely still right here he's everywhere. I feel him. I feel his presence. I feel, just the impact that he had on everybody too. Obviously, it's his own family, but 1,100 people came to his celebration of life
Wow.
at University of Tennessee. We filled up this huge auditorium and then overflowed to 300.
Wow.
And we put that on in 6 days after he passed away. I put all my energies into making sure that his life was celebrated because I didn't want it all to be about his death. And he lives on very closely to me, and his spirit of who he was and what he did and the lives he changed. And honestly, he changed the lives of so many people through the fact that we had to advocate so hard for him. Was that okay? That he helped blaze a trail for a lot of things. Dorm living at the UT Future program, just basic inclusion in Knox County, the now preschool, just everything. Life takes you in a different way, and that's the way our lives took us, having this wonderful son, and twin brother and younger brother. I mean, yeah, we're advocating for safer roads. We got a law that or a bill that was passed by the Senate, the Ben Kredich Act, which says that if somebody's had Narcan, then emergency responders now can talk about, hey, don't drive. You're not.
You cannot drive. Yeah, you're not allowed
Yeah.
to get behind the wheel. Yeah.
Yeah, and we hope for more policy changes in the future, but that was something that we have friends on both sides of the aisle, and they both supported the Ben Kredich Act, and in the Senate and the House in the legislature. So I just think that this community came together as much as it possibly could and still is. It makes you realize that whatever he did, he just, and he will keep affecting people's lives just through even Michael. Like, look at Michael. If Ben hadn't had, if we hadn't advocated for his inclusion, then I would never have met Peyton and Cole. And then would Jody have ever heard about spelling to communicate? I don't know, and now same thing. Jody and I both had breast cancer together. I don't know if she told you that, but yeah, we did everything together apparently. And if she hadn't found her breast cancer and then I hadn't gotten a mammogram back in 2013 just for peace of mind,
Yeah.
and I had a mass too that I never would have found if it hadn't been for her. So she always says, "Oh my gosh, we would have never gone to West High School or would have never known that." I'm like, "Well, you saved my life, so let's call it even."
Yeah.
We're just best buds. We have a sense of humor about everything. But boy,
Mhm.
what our families went through, especially with Michael and Ben being best friends.
Yeah. And then was it Miles that got married and Michael did the speech?
Yes, Michael stood in for Ben as groomsmen. Coleman and Ben were to be best men. So then Michael became part of the party, the groomsmen, and he spelled out his speech on the letterboard. And at the rehearsal dinner, intimate gathering of 118 people, I think we had. It was very large in Savannah, because that's where Miles and Anna Kate met on the swim team and dated all through college. Michael got up and Michael Sr., his dad, read the speech, and it was just absolutely beautiful. Again, it just keeps going. Life doesn't stop. We miss him so much. But a life does not just stop. it just sort of, in this case, it just my friend described it as just pieces of light, just especially that young. As you get older, the expectation, I think of it as a jug, right? Like at the beginning, you've got the water filling, but then towards the end, the jug is like getting full, and you're kind of expecting it to top off at a certain point. But when it stops right there, it almost like creates a wow. This is, the energy, the potential energy just sort of explodes into the universe, and it just has this impact almost because it ended that soon, as you know.
How old was he? 25?
24.
24, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and having a twin boy, Miles is just done. They were just together yesterday. We got a picture. Coleman works in New York. I don't know what he does, some financial thing. And Miles works in Chicago. He and Kate live in Chicago. So we got these city boys, who went to the cold. And but Miles and Anna Kate were able to visit Coleman in the city, and they always go to the John Lennon Imagine Memorial, because just a month before Ben died, we were all, Coleman and Matt and Ben and I were all in New York, and Coleman had just in July taken Ben up on a huge road trip to Chicago. So we all and we had gone to the beach, and it was just this amazing summer. And when we were in New York, Matt and Ben went on their e-bikes or whatever all over New York, and they went to Central Park, and Ben was the biggest Beatles and Queen fan. Like Beatles and Queen, Beatles and Queen. We went to Abbey Road. We went to the Queen Museum in Montreux, Switzerland. He could tell you what Freddie Mercury was wearing on, at this concert, 1975, in this
Right.
park, whatever.
Right.
And Ben went there, and he waved up to John Lennon, and he told Matt, "Well, this is a portal to heaven." And it was like, and it was on Jerry Garcia's birthday, so there were all these roses and everything around it. Somebody had put that for so it was beautiful. And there's Ben just waving, and we ended up going to New York not long after. One of Matt's swimmers was being honored at the New York Athletic Club for this award, and we had already planned on going to New York. And so we went back to that John Lennon Memorial and stood in the exact place, and we're like, well, this is it. So that's our portal. So now anybody who goes to New York sends us pictures.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cute.
Yeah. So that's just part of who Ben was. He just stated things that, and now I start to think a lot differently. Like,
Yeah.
he had a different.
This is a portal to heaven. Was that a typical thing for him to say something like that? Like, did he see things that people didn't see? Did he have sort of those spiritual experiences?
We always just, and now we're second guessing things a little bit, because we just always, he'd just sort of talk about heaven. It's like he could see into it. He wasn't in it. He could just always see into it. We just always thought, he said, well, I'll just jam with Freddie Mercury and John Lennon, like it was just a fact that he was going to do this. And he was just very sure of it. And I wasn't not raised with any formal religion, though I've always been open to any religion, just, the goodness of the good in people, and that I think is the basis for all religions. And I wouldn't say he subscribed to anything. He just believed that.
No, but sometimes they just say these things. You're like, where did that come from?
Yeah, like actually he was just, we were at Matt's father's bedside when he was in his last day, as it turned out, and we all went to Durham, and I think Ben got the last chuckle out of this wonderful man. Nick, and who just loved Ben and all of his grandchildren, obviously, and children. And he said, well, you're going to go on a walk with Gran, his wife who had passed away back in 2006, and Basie, and that was our dog that died, and Freddie Mercury and John Lennon. And so it was like, it was just a fact. And Nick just chuckled, and he was, you know, sort of a shadow of his former self. He had cancer, and he had that for over a year, and it was just a fact. And of course we think, oh, isn't that sweet? But I don't know. Now I just feel that he knew something the rest of us
Right.
maybe didn't. So
Right.
I just imagine as the song goes.
Mhm. Yeah, because I've talked to other moms too, and they're like, and my son was not raised with any form of religion, or either that, or they just got sent to the special ed class. They didn't learn anything, and then they just come out with these amazing things. Um, and telepathy is a hot topic right now too. Like, did you ever see anything like that? Like, do you ever wonder if maybe he and Michael were connecting, like, you know, in their minds?
You know, I always said they could just sit next to each other. And I don't know. I just because I never got to talk with Ben about any of this, but I have thought back just that they could sit together and not say anything and just enjoy each other. And I thought, oh, I said, I just feel like Ben knows Michael, just he just knows him for some reason, the way the rest of us don't. And you know,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a skeptical person by nature. Like I'm not looking to be right. I'm just looking for. I actually love being wrong. I think that's when I grow, and
Right.
so I'm very open. But you got to give me something to go on. Put it
Right.
that way.
Right.
And so all honestly, through all of the whole autism path that we've been on, I've seen tremendous personal things, just that my mind and my heart have been opened in ways that they never would have been, I think, had I not had Ben as a child. Um, and seen him grow up and seen myself react as a mother through especially advocacy. And, you know, people always say, oh, that really changed my life. Well, I kind of think, no, your life is what is at the very end of our time on earth. Like that's your life. So it didn't change. It is your life. You maybe didn't expect it to go a certain way, but that's life, you know, like in Nemo when he says Marlin says to Dory, I just don't want anything to happen to him. And she says, well, if nothing, you know, you don't want anything to happen to him, then nothing would happen to him. Not much fun for little Harpo, I think she says, you know, and it's like, it's hard to put yourself in that frame of mind when you're devastated and, you know, missing your son so much. But I do have to just take it all in and go to the lowest lows and the deepest sorrowful, sad feelings to get to the joy too. If there's one thing I know that I didn't know before was I always thought grief was this absolute, you know, just the worst sadness. I just kept thinking of it as sadness and beyond sadness. Grief was the lowest you could possibly go. And if you went any higher than that, well, then you weren't in grief. Well, I have a completely different view of that. I have the view of grief as sort of this kind of the Ferris wheel that I think of as raising a child with a disability, which is you look at a Ferris wheel, right? And you say, oh, I'll pay for that. I can see this Ferris wheel, right? It looks a little scary up at the top, but then it all comes around. Well, then you get your ticket and you give it, and then you get on a different Ferris wheel that you did not see. And it's because it goes all the way into the clouds and then it goes underground, like below the seas. You know, I call it extreme parenting. Like the highs are the highest highs. Man, the lows are the lowest lows, but it's a bigger ride. It is a bigger ride. And that's what grief feels like to me, is that if you don't let yourself feel the saddest, deepest, devastated feelings and let yourself sink into it and write songs about it or write poems, then you will get stuck. You will not be able to get to the highest highs of memories and moving, I hate to say moving forward, but just keeping going and finding joy. You gotta go all the way down to get all the way up. And
Have
it's
you
the
written
same.
any music? Has that helped you at all?
Yes. I wrote a song in the first 3 months after Ben died that that was so important. It emerged, and we've actually been working on a documentary for a long time, and now it's kind of merged to one that includes the story of Ben more than it would have. It was just really all about advocacy, and Ben and I were not. It was more the stories like Peyton's story and these inclusion stories and um, getting music therapy here for the first time and actually intellectual gifted stories, anything to do with advocacy.
Yeah.
But now it's taken on more of the story of Ben as well as all of that advocacy, because now it just doesn't work to not have his story be part of that. And
So tell me about the documentary. Who's doing it?
a production company called Pop Fizz in Knoxville, and they're just wonderful. But that song is going to be, I think, in that or at the end of that. So it's been a very personal song to me. I really haven't put it out there, but I will tell you that it was essential to me. That kept me sane and able to take on everything that was happening, especially in that first year. I just played it. It emerged, and I've just let songs emerge. And that was essential to my grief process.
Yeah.
Matt was a big journaler, and really, he's always been just such an incredible writer. And so he, I think, did a lot of reading and a lot of writing. Of course, we have this wonderful therapist, that we were able to connect with to guide us along the path. But yes, music, that song especially, I couldn't go a day without finding a time to play it in the dark, with nobody around, or I had to compose it. So it was that 3 months where I felt like that song, and it was probably that song because Ben was just sitting on my shoulder.
Right.
And that's what I mean. You better feel it, or you're not gonna be able to get anywhere beyond like zombie land, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I needed to feel the depths to rise to heights.
For me, I'm the type of person that I just work and just plow ahead and plow forward, and I don't deal with negative emotions, and I want to just keep moving forward, but I knew that if I did that I would probably crash, and you end up having a mental breakdown or something at some point. So I knew I had to deal with it. So I had to stop everything and just, and like you said, you got to let yourself get down there, and you got to let yourself feel it, and then, eventually you come out.
Yeah, you keep going in
Yeah.
that cycle, and different phases are different,
Yeah. And then, you think you're good. And then I wrote and illustrated my children's books. That was my creative process. That was, and it was all stories of Robbie when he was little. And I felt like I was spending time with him.
Yes.
When I was writing it. Right. And doing all the little illustrations. So that took that was November that was probably a 6-month process too. Yeah. And
yeah.
Right. And so we're both creative. You got to use that creative process. And then, you think you're okay. And then a couple of months ago, I was asked to paint a mural at Gigi's Playhouse, which is a place for kids with Down syndrome. And they said, we want trees so that you can, we want to put the names of the donors on all the leaves of the trees. I said, okay, that's fine. I could do this. And then they said, oh, and could you also add some butterflies, and those will represent all of our members that are no longer here with us. They've all passed on. And it came up like a well, and I ran out of the room. And I heard them saying, what just happened right now? Like they didn't, and then somebody had to whisper, I had to explain it to them, but I didn't expect it. That came out of nowhere,
Yeah, there's a lot that's just right on the surface, especially at the beginning. You know, we were concentrating on the celebration of life, and like 150 people came in from out of town, and we hosted people at our house, and it was joyous, and it was like, and it was a little bit manic because we had to celebrate his life, but it was, and we were still in shock. You know, you can't write your kid's obituary. Like, it just was too much.
It all happens too fast.
Right. So since then, it's like, oh, now I was in protective mode, and the brain and the heart protect you. And then
later
the months go by, and then I feel like, wow, I'm at a fragile state, and I'm just going to own it and then feel it. And then I'm going to see what's next. And I don't really try to control it. I just try to honor the process.
Right. Well, and then, you know, honoring Ben. Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, listen, we've been on a long time. We're going on an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh. Have fun editing.
Yeah. So thank you for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. Well, so we'll send everybody over to your Facebook page, and they can talk about that. And hopefully when the documentary comes out, you'll post it on there. People can watch it. And then, you know, let's hope that the education system changes and that spelling is going to start being allowed in schools all across the country.
Yep.
Be wonderful. All right. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. To learn more about our children's book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, or to learn more about what we do at Robbie's World Foundation, simply visit our website at robbiesworldbook.com.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.